introduced this theme, meaningful ministry, and we even had a little video that kind of captured the whole theme. This is a 3-week series. If you didn't watch or haven't yet watched our sermon on YouTube from last week, and you weren't able to join us last week, it might be helpful to go back and to watch that. But the theme of last week was that personal ministry, personal service to God and to others isn't always easy. And for some reason, that must have resonated with many of the people that were here last week. I think I had more feedback on that sermon than I've had in a while, as you could tell that it struck a chord that people talked about, personal ministry isn't easy. And you could just see how people maybe carried guilt because they realize they in their mind they haven't done enough, or they haven't done the right thing as they've tried to serve others, or they've tried to serve God, or you could talk about how maybe people carried some worry as they thought about the people that they're trying to serve in their life, and just hoping that they cling to God's word. I heard people talking about just carrying a bunch of anxiety. And thankfully, people also heard the gospel and just walk out of here with burdens. But there was this sense that when we talk about our ministry, there's just a lot of weight, a lot of baggage that we carry. And so my question for you today is, what did you carry in here today as you walk through those doors? We have this way, I think, of turning our living rooms into this baggage claim area with a carousel, and we have all this baggage that we can pick up. And it seems like every Sunday morning, we just kind of look at all those suitcases go around and say, well, which one am I going to take with me today? And so I'm wondering, what did you bring in here? Did you carry again that suitcase of guilt as you walked in here today? One of those big ones that you have to put on rollers? Are you carrying a handbag of worry or anxiety for what's coming up in your life? Are you carrying that shiny black briefcase of perfectionism? And you set it so neatly right on your lap, metaphorically here today, and you're unclicking the combinations, and that's what you bring here today, that you feel you have to be perfect. Are you carrying maybe some fear, especially after some of the events that we saw last night, maybe fear for our country, or just what's this world coming to? What are you carrying? What's in your suitcase? Kind of reminds me of that, what is it, Citibank? What's in your wallet, right? But what's in your suitcase? That's the question to kind of keep in mind today. But not even just what's in your suitcase, what are you carrying, but how are you going to carry it? That's maybe even more of the question. And that's the question that Jesus addresses today as we think about the burdens that we carry, maybe self-imposed, but the burdens that we carry as we go about our own personal, meaningful ministry. And his solution, the way that he says what we should do with our baggage, is he says, don't carry it. You say, what? Don't carry it? No, he says, check it, right? Check your luggage. He says, let me carry it. Let me provide for you. And you look at some of these passages here. I mean, this is what his instructions were to his disciples as he sends them out on their own personal ministry. Right? He says, take nothing for the journey except a staff. No bread, no bag, no money in your belts. Wear sandals, but not an extra shirt. In other words, I'm going to provide for everything that you need. Now, to be fair, this was this mission trip that Jesus is sending his disciples on. It had boundaries, all right? This was just a short little stint that he was sending them out. He was going to call them back. So you don't have to feel guilty if you go travel and you accidentally pack a second shirt. All right? He's not saying you have to feel guilty if you accidentally have some cash in your wallet. That's not his point. For this journey, He's saying not do that. But the principle that Jesus tells his disciples is the same principle that applies to you and to me as we go about our personal ministry journeys, and that's this: trust. Trust in the Lord to provide. As you go about your service to God, trust in the Lord as you go about your service to others. That's easier said than done. You know, I often say it's easy to trust in God until you have to trust in God, right? You know, or you think of that luggage, that baggage picture. I hate checking my bags when I go to the airport. Why? Because I don't trust they're going to get where I want them to be, right? I want to carry them. I don't want to leave them out of my sight, or I'll put them above my head, and that's about it. I wonder if we adopt that same attitude when it comes to the burdens in our personal ministry. It's not easy to check them with God, because maybe we don't always trust that he's going to get those things to where we want them to be. Case in point, you know, maybe many of us have heard those Bible passages where Jesus says, "Call upon me in the day of trouble," and I will deliver you. Or, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, carrying all these things, and I'll give you rest." You don't have to carry those things. I'll give you rest. And yet, when I started the sermon and said, "What baggage are you carrying?" most of you at least picked up something, right? We don't always find rest in Jesus. We feel like we have to carry these things ourselves. You know, maybe it's just because we're so conditioned by airport security that says, don't let anybody else take care of your luggage, and that can come in the way when it comes to Jesus as well. But today, as he addresses that, as he talks about the burdens that we carry, as we do personal, meaningful ministry, he gives us a few reasons why we can trust him to provide. And the first reason why we can trust him as we go about our personal, meaningful ministry is that he doesn't send us out alone. Just as I talked about with the kids today. It maybe seems like a very minute point as you read through that gospel lesson today, but just look the way that it starts off here. It says, calling the 12 to him, he began to send them out 2 by 2. 2 by 2. For some reason, that phrase just jumped off the page this week as I worked on this sermon, and maybe it's because I just saw a trailer for a movie that's coming out this fall, not necessarily in the big theaters, but it's coming out in some theaters. It's called 1 by 1. And maybe that phrase resonates with you because a few years ago, there was a leadership presentation done in our circles by a private investigator, or undercover cop turned pastor. And the name of his presentation was called 1 by 1. And the only reason I bring that up is because we did a Bible study based on that presentation about 4 years ago. So some of you were here. And we did this thing called 1 by 1. And that's true, but the whole point of that presentation, the whole point of that Bible study was that's how God brings people into his kingdom. 1 by 1. How he sends us out is 2 by 2. He doesn't say you have to do all these things by yourself. And I want to remind you of that as we, tying back to last week, when you talk about how personal, meaningful ministry isn't easy, maybe it's because we take it all on ourselves. And we forget that God puts people in our lives to help us carry those burdens. We forget that he puts people right here around us to encourage us in our personal ministries, to equip us in the way that we serve God and the way that we serve others, to celebrate with us as we go about his work. The big fancy word that this is really describing is fellowship. You've heard me say that word before. Fellowship, you can always think of it's two fellows in the same ship, right? You're maybe on the opposite ends of the boat and maybe doing different things, but you're still going in the same direction. Fellowship is so much more than just coffee and treats after church. Fellowship is so much more of what we're going to do so much over the next 4 weeks. It's more than just a food and drink for welcoming a vicar. It's more than food and drink for saying goodbye to a vicar. It's more than food and drink for welcoming a new pastor. Fellowship, in its most basic sense, is working together for the sake of the truth. And that's what God does. That's what he does right here. That's why it's so important that you're here, to help each other carry one another's burdens, to help equip, to help encourage, to help and celebrate. That is God's design. And I think about how important that is, especially when we talk about our future as a congregation. Again, tying into last week we talked about how we kind of go on a ministry calendar, July 1 to June 30th, and right now our plans are that we're kind of adopting this as our theme for 2024-25, the 24, there's 24 hours in a day. Right now, this is our shift to do work. This is our time to live brightly for Jesus, to work with a sense of urgency. And our goal, our written goal, is that we want to have 4,000 hours of volunteer service between all of us over the next year. That sounds a lot, right? That's 2 full-time jobs. But if there's about 100 that are part of our congregation, it's less than an hour a week. But you see how God can work together to do his work, to help you in your personal service. And yet, as wonderful as that is, as Jesus' 2x2 plan is, we know that sometimes can bring its own set of challenges. Maybe you're one of those people that loves to be on a 3-person team or a 3-person committee where 2 are absent, right? Where you just want to do things by yourself. And Jesus, too, recognizes that no matter what 2 he sends out together to do work together, whether it's for a congregation or whether it's in your personal lives, neither of the 2 are ever perfect. You're going to let each other down, and you're going to be let down by the other person, right? So next week we welcome a new pastor. I know I am going to let him down. I will probably call him by accident vicar instead of pastor. And hopefully he won't be offended, right? And I will probably fail to communicate something that I need to communicate with him. In 3 weeks, when we welcome Vicar Lersch, those first 2 days will be chock full of orientation. And one of the things that I always say to the vicars is that you will learn what not to do as much as you learn what to do this year. And that happens in our lives as well. And that maybe you're partnered with someone, whether it's in congregational ministry or whether it's in personal ministry. And that can become frustrating when they let you down or when you let them down. And like I said, it's not just congregational ministry, it's our personal ministry. Maybe you're working together in family ministry, right? You're parenting. And so God puts you together as husband and wife, and what's going to happen? You're not just going to be disappointed in the kids once in a while, you're going to be disappointed in your spouse in the way that they partner with you. Or maybe you're taking care of aging parents, and so you've got this family ministry going on, and what's happening? You're going to be frustrated by your siblings, that your sister's going to be selfish or your brother's going to be irresponsible. Or you're doing something together at work and in your vocational ministry, and you're going to be let down by your coworker. You know, this is such a common thing. While it is beautiful to be paired 2 by 2, to be working together in ministry, whether it's personal or whether it's congregational, the truth remains, neither of the 2 of you will ever be perfect. And Jesus knew that for his disciples too. So he didn't just send them out 2 by 2. More importantly, he sent them out with his authority. That is why they could go with confidence. Now, I know that word authority, maybe isn't always a positive sounding word in our culture. Authority figures are often looked at with suspicion. But especially in Jesus' day, that word authority was very much respected. Over 100 times, Jesus' name is linked with authority. When Jesus preaches, people are amazed. Why? Because he teaches like one who has authority. They are amazed that he has the authority to forgive sins. Here in this lesson, he gives authority to his disciples, showing that he has authority even over impure spirits. Or you think about when Jesus, right before he ascends into heaven, he commissions his disciples to go and make other disciples. And he says, this is why you can have confidence. Why? Because all authority in heaven and in earth has been given to me. That same authority that he gave them to go out and to be his witnesses, that same authority that he has as he sits at the right hand of God as the ascended Lord, is what he gives to you and to me. And so as you go about your ministry, you might be frustrated by the other person who's ever the 2x2 with you. But you can go forward with confidence, knowing that you have the Lord's authority to do these things that he asks us to do. And when you think about that we have a God who is that much in control, who has all authority, that is what gives us the confidence to do what he asked his disciples to do here, to leave your baggage, leave your luggage. Whatever luggage you brought in here today, Jesus says, leave it here. He takes care of that. There's nothing you have to worry about. You just look at the way that he has exercised his authority, not just in ministry, but over every opponent that wants to get in the way of ministry. Sin, he showed his authority over sin as he paid the price on the cross. Death, he showed his authority over death as he woke from the grave. The devil showed his authority as he stomped his head, crushing his head by paying the perfect life and rising again. There is nothing that Jesus doesn't have authority over, and now he gives that authority to you. And so, brothers and sisters, as you go about your personal, meaningful ministry, go with confidence. Trust that the Lord provides as he gives you helpers right here in this room, 2x2. He sends us out. But more importantly, he sends you out with his authority. Amen. And we join together in our Christian faith